Okay, so before we get into the video for real, I have to put this disclaimer out there, because not only am I the person that funded this video, but, well, this is my team. The only team that I was ever a part of in League Zero. So, while I don't think I have any major inaccuracies, and I've added a lot more interview clips compared to the first two Charity Sirs, take everything I say with a grain of salt. Anyways, back to the video. History is a weird thing. In hindsight, everything becomes so clear, but in the moment, it can be hard to tell when you're living through something special. That pivotal moment in the timeline, where everything will change from then on, and what comes next are merely ripples on the water. At first glance, this story might seem boring or uneventful, especially when comparing it to their Season 0 counterparts. After all, this team never imploded like Easy Clap. They took losses in stride, unlike for Overwatch, and they even performed reasonably well when all was said and done. So is this tale even worth telling? Well, actually, yes. Would you believe it if I said this just might be the most important team to ever compete in League Zero? I know, that's rich coming from me, but I think there's some merit to that statement. Though, I may be getting ahead of myself here. We need to see the full picture in order to better understand what makes this tale so special. And for that, we need to meet Plat Chat. In Season 0, teams were formed much differently than every other season that came after. Managers were chosen exclusively from League staff, and in the case of Plat Chat, Boulders was given the reins. While being one of the more active and outspoken moderators in Dividing's other Discord server at the time, Boulders didn't have easy access to a computer. Equipped with little more than an old laptop and the Xbox Discord app, he knew he needed an active captain to pick up the slack for when he couldn't be there. That's where Tanikby comes in.
Being brought in as a captain, I'm pretty sure is selected based on how long you're inside of the League Zero community. Since I was in the Divided by Zero Discord server for a long time and I was active in it, I ended up being selected as a captain for that reason. I know it was the same reason for people like Damien Dap, Time, Squirt, Shash. But yeah, everyone who was active in the League Zero community for a long enough time and was, vocal and whatever would ended up being selected for that reason.
The team's plan going into the draft revolved mostly around the idea of picking up players based on how active they were in the Discord, as well as avoiding anyone with major red flags. There weren't many scouting opportunities back in Season 0, so a lot of this was unfortunately just a shot in the dark.
It was weird. We kind of just looked for players. Since there was no scouting done, there's nothing. It was based off of your SR and if we knew who you were. Some picks were obviously just based off of SR. I know our first pick, Bun, was purely off of SR. Purely because they were the top three. It was them. I can't remember who else, but I know Bun was up there. So that's why we picked Bun. But the rest kind of just based off of needs and SR. If we needed another tank, we picked another tank. Stuff like that.
The draft went as follows, with a relatively sturdy lineup all things considered. Bun was one of the very few GMs in the draft pool, and Grandy was a High Masters main tank when most other players in that role were nowhere near his SR. Everyone was relatively laid back to start, and there was a fair bit of excitement to get the season underway.
I think I was, if not the last pick in the draft, I know it was in the last round, but I distinctly remember being, one of, if not the lowest ranked player in Season 0. I remember being woefully outclassed as a silver.
I remember when I got picked, I was one of the only Flexport players that had left in the pool, because everybody picked up Flexports really early, and I actually didn't have my SR on the draft sheet. They picked me completely blind. And I kind of joined BC, and they were like, yeah, what's your rank, by the way? We didn't see it. And they were happy I was Diamond. But it was a really fun team environment at first. It always was. It was just a really fun team, to be honest. Nobody took things too seriously.
For the most part, everyone clicked right away, probably helped by the fact that the average age of the team seemed to be a bit higher than the rest of the league. No real drama to speak of, and while Bun couldn't make it to the first couple of scrims, the team performed well enough all the same. Morale was high considering they were finding success even without one of, if not the best DPS player in the league.
It was funny, I'm looking around and it's oh wow, everyone else here is just so good. It was intimidating more than anything, knowing the people I was with, and I thought everyone I was against was going to be of a similar caliber. I was just going to be going against a bunch of high diamond, low masters type of players.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were all pretty good. Yeah, pretty sure we meshed pretty well at the start. Before the games actually got started, we were all chill, and I don't think there was any drama with our team.
I think it felt fine. Everyone was active. The team felt fine from what I recall. But it was also like nobody, at least at my experience, I had no idea what a team environment should have been like and what it's like. So I was like, I just assumed everything was fine, you know? There was really no immediate regrets.
Now, funnily enough, while the team drafted plenty of supports, there was some difficulty figuring out who was going to be in the starting 6. Myself and Paradox were Zen 1 tricks, though I had just started to pick up Ana around that time. Baz was more or less locked in, but it was actually EQO, a main tank player normally, who was slotted in as the starting main support.
So I signed up like main tank as my main role, and then I signed up just general support as my secondary role. But I know, we had the in-houses between members before League Zero even started. We just had for fun in-houses sometimes. I was with Tannic one time. He was more of a hardcore tank player than I was, so I bit the bullet and said, all right, man, I'm going on, I'm pocketing you. And so I just pocketed him the whole game. We stomped the in-house specifically because of that. And he just remembered that one game and said, you know what? I want this guy. I mean, famously my worst character, but he picked me up for my Ana just as a mid-round draft pick after we got all the really good players out of the way. And so that's how I transitioned from being a tank to a support in the actual league. So my general thought process was I wasn't the worst support in the league, but I wasn't the best. So I viewed my role as simply be good enough to keep people afloat, right? As long as I'm not getting picked early and as long as my target prioritization for heals is good. And of course, as the Lucio throughout a lot of it, I was also involved in a lot of the comms. As long as I have good comms, good survivability, I just have to keep myself afloat and allow for our big three, right? Grandy, Bun, and Basilisk. As long as those three could do their individual plays and I kept everyone else afloat, our team would be golden.
Despite having a solid starting lineup of Grandy, Pings, Bun, Tannic, Baz, and EQO, everyone would get at least a map or two during scrims. If you showed up, you were gonna get playtime, and I can personally attest to this raising the morale of the bench quite a bit. Just getting the chance to feel involved made it that much easier to sit on the sidelines for the majority of games.
Involved, I think a lot of that was just myself, it's just I made a point to be there. I always wanted to be present for whatever, right? And it was kind of just in case they need me kind of a deal at first, but I feel like I did a decent job of providing kind of some moral support and kind of some comfort and some calm to the team. Again, there are a lot of kind of abrasive personalities. I remember there was a bit of frustration about Bun or Nub kind of being wishy-washy and inactive a bit. I know that I remember EQO being someone who can get frustrated pretty easily. So I felt like my presence there was a little bit of a balancing act. But no, I did feel like I was participating in the team and being there and being present and, definitely kind of a fill-in role and there if I need, but I was trying to be the best, team player that I could be. And if my number did get called, I wanted to be ready to take that on.
The entire league was extremely hyped for the first week of games, and everyone was scrimming quite a bit in the hopes of claiming their first win. Plat Chat spent a lot of time figuring out what compositions we wanted to run on which maps, and even counter strats to anything EasyClap might throw our way. In hindsight, we may have over-prepared, but if you watch the EasyClap, sir, you'll also know it didn't matter that much anyways.
I remember back then I was a Zen player at first with that team. And was it Goats that season? It was Goats, right? I remember I pretty much we played in a Zen. I pretty much forced Zen whenever I could. I remember the first couple games I didn't really know how to do team play. I was kind of just playing Zen and clicking heads.
The first map of the series was a little touch and go, where it looked like anyone could take it, but once Plat Chat gained the momentum, there really wasn't any looking back. It hard snowballed into a clean victory, and it skyrocketed team morale. We even got to pull out a meme strategy of 5 tanks into Lucio to claim the series-winning map on King's Row.
I mean, everything was great. It wasn't the cleanest, of course. We still had some comms issues because our main tank wasn't the biggest communicator in the game, so everyone else had to do a little bit of their own comms for him, which sometimes led to mismatches in what we did, but overall, we more or less just ran them over through mechanics and mechanics alone. Right? That was one of those games where we were just the better players, and by merely existing, we could passively win that. So there wasn't way too much to take away from that, you feel me?
Next up on the chopping block was C9, and while they were anticipated to be one of the best teams early on, there were other concerns about this particular match. You see, Z9 had a bit of a reputation already for having awful schedules. They went through a giant ordeal to reschedule their first game multiple times, leading to the community joking that they schedule diffed their opponents. Much the same happened to Plat Chat, as Z9 could allegedly field a roster of 6, but it wouldn't be remotely close to them at full power. Riding high off the confidence from beating Easy Clap the week prior, and in an attempt to be good sports, we decided to reschedule the match to a less than convenient time for us. Bun in particular would be unavailable for the new time, but that was the only casualty of the reschedule, and we were sure one absence wouldn't make that much of a difference.
Bun was the heart and soul of that team. We lost. We didn't have Bun. We didn't win. It kind of felt like, but that was fine. I think that's a regret I also had of that season, where we should not have rescheduled, knowing the shit they pull. But it's fine. In the end, it was kind of bad for morale, considering I probably tossed away that game. If we don't reschedule, we win.
Nothing seemed to work, and we lost our first game in dramatic fashion. Though we did have the scapegoat of claiming Bun wasn't there to match Cybersnip, so we didn't dwell on it too much.
Well, from my perspective, we didn't take the loss very badly. Pretty sure we were still pretty confident. I remember we went against Z9 and Go again pretty early on, so... But I think our mentality was not too bad. Nobody flamed each other or anything. I think we took the loss pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the team didn't implode, so I think were able to bounce back. That's what I base it off of. If our team imploded after one loss, then I don't think we weren't not one trick wonders. Oh well, whatever they were called. That team? That team was a funny team.
Shortly after the second game ended, Bun had gone to management asking to be traded to Z9. It's important to note that Bun and Cyber were friends prior to League 0, and had gone into the league hoping to play together. Obviously, GMs were a hot commodity, and league staff didn't want to allow them to move so freely between rosters compared to any of the lower level players. The complete denial from staff exacerbated frustrations Bun was having about being the quote-unquote carry of the team, which, I mean, yeah, she was. According to the records I could dig up, Bun was the third highest SR player from the draft, the other two being Swaggy Turtle and Cybersnip, both of which weren't quite as active as their respective teams would have liked. Unfortunately for Bun, the common theme for Season 0 was each team attempting to rally behind their highest rated player, and the people running the league were all too aware of that fact. Robbing a team of that firepower was something they wanted to avoid at all costs.
I understand why, because at that point, it kind of was like a friend league, It felt more like a community friend league, I could force stuff to happen, but I think staff not allowing Bun to be traded was the right decision, considering that Bun and Cyber were probably the two best players in that season, and those two people being on the same team would have just made the season not matter. Only one team would have had a chance to win, and even then, I'm not sure, considering those two are just the two best players in the tournament on every role. I'm trying to think of any role they were not the best on. I don't think they were.
Once the realization that the trade to Z9 was never going to happen, Bun calmed down and decided to recommit to the team, which in hindsight is a crazy amount of self-restraint for someone who was 14 at the time. I give a lot of respect to her for that one. Anyways, Week 3's game was versus One Trick Wonders, and was a pretty dominant stomp in favor of Plat Chat. The team spent a lot of time scrimming each week, and the synergy was starting to put us ahead of the rest of the competition. Shortly after this game, the trading window opened up, where we traded the backup off-tank Corey to Newt for a diamond hitscan DPS called Sunstorm. Sunstorm was basically inactive, which we knew going into the trade, but Corey had a tendency to tilt even while spectating from the bench, so we just wanted to get rid of him. He was the one player that didn't jive well with the rest of the roster, and keeping the peace was more important to management. It was also around this time that the team picked up Oracle as a coach to supplement me as the player coach, because Lord knows I had no idea what the hell I was talking about back then.
I don't know. It was weird. He was a bit weird, and we just ended up trading him for Annoy. I think Annoy showed up to a scrim in a game or two. He was good when he played. He just had to play.
The one big issue that remained was the fact that Grandy didn't really calm that much. Mechanically, he was insane, at least for the time, but he had a tendency to charge into battle without telling anyone what he was doing. Keep in mind this was around the end of the Mercy dive meta and the start of Goats, so the main tank kinda had to talk. We shopped around the free agent pool a bit to see if there was anyone worth grabbing as a backup, and, well, we found someone. And it's a whole lot more cursed than you could ever imagine.
We picked up a Greed! I forgot! Another backup tank in case neither of our tanks could make it. And so getting a Greed who was like Diamond and Masters then was like, oh, unless he's very weird and like a terrible in a team environment, I don't think it would be like, or unhappy with being a backup, I don't think it would cause any problems. And I don't think it did, because we ended up trading him to Rio.
I wasn't very mad about it, but I was more upset that I wanted to play with my friends that I came into the league with. So I was always asking like, oh, maybe we can do a trade to Rio and I can go to Rio and this and that, just so I could like go play with my friends like Zero. So I wanted to join because it's mostly Zero, Yolo God, and Recto, because I really liked them. I'm still friends with Recto. I haven't talked to Yolo God in a bit. So I wasn't mad that I was a backup main tank. It was more that I wanted to be on the team with my friends, even if it was a backup. But for some reason they traded their main tank for me, so I kind of got into a shitty position because nobody really liked me even before meeting me.
Pings started to become less active for scrims by the midway points in the season, though he was still able to make it to games. It wasn't the worst possible scenario, but it did lead to a lot less synergy for the brief period surrounding week 4.
We only played with him in like one scrim, and it was his trial scrim, and I remember just not really I didn't hate him, I didn't love him. I wasn't super active in like making the team decisions that season. I kind of let things happen. I remember like it was kind of just for like a week or two, we just had a new tank player every 2 days. Like we had Agreed, we had that Corey guy, we had like, and then after that we had Matt come in. It was like I just wanted to play with Pings and Grandy.
Go Again by this point was considered the best team in the league, bar none, and we definitely weren't expecting to be the first ones to defeat them. We tempered our expectations with the idea of stealing a map off them and seeing where we could go from there.
And this series is kind of when the trash talk started, because like after that came the whole Plasma's cheating scandal, where basically every single team begun clowning on him after this one for basically just taking what was supposed to be, right, a for fun, members come together, just have some games together, and he just said screw it, brought in a bunch of Masters players who had never once been in the server. It felt out of character for the league entirely, and so everyone just kind of ganged up on Go Again as a whole. Not that we could actually do much in the games, admittedly, but we did our darndest in the Discord.
We knew they loved to play Wrecking Ball on Hanamura and practiced a counter dive strategy specifically to counter the ball on first point defense. It worked like a charm, perhaps a bit too well, because their tank at the time, Geode, rage quit mid-map, forcing the team to play a 5v6 and effectively forfeit Hanamura. We got what we came for, though unfortunately the remainder of the series didn't quite go our way. Morale was high though, and we were extremely happy with how we performed against a significantly stronger team.
Oh my god. Now, yeah. Yeah, like, we did the right idea. Like, that's smart by us, tilt their best player, or their ball player out of the game, but it backfired because it's Ball in Overwatch 1, back when Ball was bad. So we just ended up just giving them, like, a big advantage and buffing them.
Now, during the interviews, I came across an interesting little story to supplement what was known for the longest time about Geode rage quitting on Hanamura. Funnily enough, this was a complete secret for over 5 years until just now.
Oh, actually I do have some information about that. So, I guess it's been long enough, probably nobody cares if I... Basically, Geode was my friend from high school, actually, and he joined the league because I told him about it, and we were playing Overwatch a lot at the time, and we're still pretty good friends to this day. We play every once in a while. It's unfortunately hard because we can't dang duo anymore. We had some fun shit going on. Anyway, before that game, he was really pissed at Plasma. Plasma just pissed him off a lot. So he decided, hey, I'm just gonna throw. So he went into first map and just ran it down, got full head on Hanamura, and then got insta-capped, and then they took him out, and then we lost the rest of the series. So we didn't really beat them on any maps, we more just had a win trader on Hanamura.
Just after the 4th game, what turned out to be the most impactful trade in the entirety of Season 0 took place. If you were paying attention to Agreed's interview clip a minute ago, you may have picked up on the fact that he wanted to play with Rio Redemption from the time he joined the league. While he wasn't extremely unpleased to be a backup main tank for Plat Chat, of course he wanted to play with the people he knew. Team management came together to negotiate a trade to Rio for Pixel Storm. I know what you're thinking. You guys traded 2 main tanks that were the exact same rank? Yes, but there was some logic beyond Agreed asking for it. From Plat Chat's perspective, Agreed had basically the same hero pool as Grandy, so he was never going to start despite having marginally better comms. According to Damien, Rio's captain back then, Pixel Storm's hero pool filled in the more niche tanks like Orisa, which Grandy hated to play. Normally we'd have to swap EQO over to main tank, put me in his place on support, and swap Grandy out entirely, which obviously wasn't great. Everything was lined up just before the Go Again game, and once that match had ended, the trade went through. Unfortunately, Rio's management hadn't actually told any of their players about the roster move, including Pixel Storm. So the first few moments after the announcement were awkward to say the least. This would inadvertently cause the Rio Civil War due to the different factions within that team liking or hating the trade, but we'll save the specifics of that drama for another day. For the parts of it that involved Plat Chat, we were immediately trying to figure out what we could do to make the situation right for the new and unwilling player. Pixel Storm stuck around for a few days before eventually being transferred over to EasyClap as their coach for the remainder of the season. Originally, the intention was to transfer him as a player, but staff had a weird reasoning for why they didn't want to allow that.
I'm pretty sure it was because they didn't just want a team to fall, like basically, hey, why should we allow a team who just imploded to basically just get a new roster for free and just improve themselves greatly? I think that was part of the reason. Which, on paper, that roster was not bad. Like, that roster should have won the wild card. No, they did. They did, right? I mean, they wanted that. They didn't want that roster to basically just have, like, win the wild card, I think. Because they talked about it, they were going to, like, allow every team to make playoffs. So why would they allow, that roster to implode and build a better team than any team that's currently available?
In the aftermath of the disastrous Agreed trade, and while we were trying to figure out the logistics of getting Pixel Storm on EasyClap, the team held some late-season scouting pugs to fill a few gaps in the roster, namely someone who could play off-tank on a more consistent basis, and then someone to act as a dedicated hitscan DPS. Bun could play hitscan, but she preferred to fill as the flex DPS, which overlapped with both Tanic and Inori's hero pools. After a few days, the team unanimously agreed on picking up Hedwig and Matt, or Big Boy McMatt at the time, while also dropping Sunstorm in order to free up another roster spot. Hedwig in particular, being a low GM hitscan player, took a lot of the pressure off Bun, and she noticeably had a better time for the remainder of the season as a result.
With definitely those two, we were a really strong team altogether. I always felt like we will probably stick with second.
Morale was pretty high by this point in the season, as even though we were 2-2, we also had already faced the two teams expected to put up a fight, meaning the rest of our matches were going to be a lot easier. As Pings was still mostly unavailable for scrims by this point, both the new players were given plenty of opportunities to start.
From what I recall, it seemed really cool because that was my first organized team experience, and I didn't really have that much time in the game. And as you would see in later VODs, you could tell I did not have much time in the game. But I thought everyone was really cool, but y'all seemed to have like a good little vibe together.
I remember Bun as terrifyingly good even back then, although that was to my, that point, Masters or something experience. I mean, now Bun is in Contenders, so obviously that held up. But they would be the player that stuck out the most to me. And then Baz was kind of a standout too. Little trolly, little funny, but a standout nonetheless. And then when I got to interact with Pings and Grandy were always great fun. Even if not the most mechanically talented, they were extremely entertaining, which kind of made the roster feel more friendly and more like a group of friends rather than just, oh, we're a bunch of people playing together. Matt was also toxic, but I love Matt.
Fortunately, their personalities fit right in with the rest of the roster, and there weren't really any moments of drama. In hindsight, I have no idea how we managed to get this lucky, but I suppose you shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth.
I felt like at that point we had a solid, well-rounded roster, and I was really confident going into playoffs. I remember thinking we were going to win it all. Obviously, I didn't know if we were going to beat Go again because they were fucking stacked. At the time, like having one GM player made your team crazy, and they had like 5. So...
Now, as was tradition for this roster, we needed to have just a little bit of scuff when it came to people in starting roles. While Matt slotted in reasonably well for the off-tank spot as Pings wasn't around, this wasn't exactly his main role. Normally he plays main tank, but again, there were very few people in the league at this time that could bench Grandy, so Matt was given the task of playing Diva and picking up the comms that his counterpart wouldn't provide.
I wanted to take the opportunity, but obviously it was uncomfortable, and it still is now. Funnily enough, I play for collegiate, and I definitely spent time on the other tanks, but my mains are my mains. I definitely tried. I know I still had an ego for some reason, even though I knew I fed so hard. I don't know. I remember telling myself I think I could do it, and I don't think I did, but I tried.
The first game with the new pickups was going to be special for a couple of reasons. Obviously this was their chance to start, but for Hedwig in particular, he was getting a chance to face the person who brought him into the community, Melon, who, by the way, was an 11-year-old GM hitscan player, which is terrifying to think about and was definitely at the forefront of our minds when preparing for this game. But that wasn't the only challenge we'd face. You see, from the beginning of the season, Boulders and Tannic wanted to make sure everyone got a chance to start for one game. We weren't entirely sure which games at the time, but as fate would have it, Newt Newt was my chance. By this point in the season, I was hard grinding Ana, so most of our preparation revolved around Baz sitting right next to me as Brig and finding cheeky setups for anti-nades to engage. It worked well enough, though we trolled the third map after we'd already won the series. Not too shabby considering the most terrifying player in the lobby was a toddler less than half my age and twice my SR.
All I know is I'm pretty sure they were tilted after that game. I think though, in the community, letting everyone start was the right idea, because everyone deserves a chance to at least play. Even if you're riding the bench the whole season, it's no fun, you know?
It is worth noting as well that originally we had planned to sub in EQO for Watchpoint Gibraltar for the second map, so he could take Orisa duty from Grandy. But that plan got thrown out the window when he decided to bicker with the aforementioned 11-year-old in general chat. Needless to say, Grandy stayed in the entire series.
Between weeks 4 and 5, the Newt Newt game, week 5, there was a DPS player on Newt Newt, Zira, and we were just... Oh, he was on what? There's no way. It couldn't have been Zira. Okay, there was just some DPS player I was bickering with. Melon! Yes, okay. Also, I just knew it was a child. Right, because back at that time, I was just a teenager, 16, 17, and there was some child that was rage baiting me in the general chat, and we were just screaming at each other, and eventually, some point down the line, I crossed basically every single line with the stuff I said. It couldn't even be, it wasn't said in private, so I had no deniability. And the words that came out of my mouth were vile enough that I got definitely a warranted 1-week suspension. And so, that Newt Newt game, I was out of it entirely, didn't get to fill up to any of the trash talk I was doing.
Newt Newt being one of the more average teams in the league by then meant that the rest of Plat Chat's regular season was going to be relatively easy. The Uwu game was next, though in theory we were just going to tilt them and win. Even with the need to pocket Paradox during his starting game, surely it wouldn't be that hard to tilt the opponents, right?
Yeah, I can't say that I remember that part specifically. My memory is that when I was told that I would be starting, it came as a bit more of a surprise, and just kind of just a moment to prove myself and to say, hey, even though I'm silver, right, that I wanted to play in this league and I had something to contribute. So I don't, maybe a little bit of them saying something about, everyone getting an opportunity, but it wasn't something that I remember going every week through and preparing for or getting excited for. So
check out the 4 Overwatch video if you'd like to learn more about this series from their perspective, but needless to say, we rolled them. Even harder than the week prior, and with marginally less trolling.
The one moment from this series that I distinctly remember, it was on Temple of Anubis' second point. But it had to have been Endil who was the Genji there. But I remember just a lot of times. So I'm a Zenyatta one trick. I always have been. I've expanded in a little bit, right? I can play an Ana, I can play a Brig, but Zenyatta was basically all that I could play with any competency. When I get in those moments of kind of support danger, it just becomes incredible tunnel vision from me. It becomes really hard to focus on anything else but surviving, which for Zenyatta often means killing the person who is attacking you. So I remember the Genji coming through. I think there was a Dragon Blade that was about to come out. I just remember discording, and for one brief moment, maybe 5 seconds, my aim just turned immaculate. I think I hit a headshot or 2 in a row, and I was having Zarya on our team and just getting all of the bubbles, all of the resources, right? As a silver player, as a silver support player, I had never gotten harder peel in my entire life.
We did prepare a fair amount to give Paradox the best chance possible at surviving and thriving, but I don't think any of us were expecting the opponents to get so tilted at the fact that they couldn't kill a Silver Zen one trick. Ironically, in hindsight, I don't think we really tilted Endil, which was the original plan, but all's well that ends well. And while we were at it, we even managed to successfully bring out a little meme strategy to break through first point on Temple of Anubis.
I remember Dividing was casting, and he's like, this is a spawn thing, right? They're not actually playing Widow, right? And no, we actually played Widow. Well, because that was the only team we could pull that out against, and it would maybe work. We also played it on Temple, which was the only Widow map.
Widow goats. Yes, really. And it worked. We never pulled it out in another game, but it had like an 80% success rate in scrims, even after that game when it wasn't even a secret anymore. But what might have been even funnier is the fact that Paradox performed so well that some people in the community thought he might be lying about his rank.
I think I maybe recall like an inkling of that, and it's really funny, you know. Especially as someone, again, like you said, there might be a few bronzes, but like I was at least the lowest SR player on our team, and I was, you know, taken in the last round. I'm pretty sure I was one of the lowest overall that had just signed up to be involved. You know, I'm definitely coming in with this kind of underdog mentality of like, obviously I'm not here to like light the league on fire or anything, but if I do get playtime, I want to show that I'm not just that. I didn't want to be a hindrance to my team. You know, that was kind of my biggest fear, I think. To hear that people thought that I was smurfing is really funny, just because from my perspective, it was so different. I'm glad that I was able to put on, you know, that decent of a performance, I guess, that made people think that, you know. But for anyone who ever asks that, like, there's nothing in there. I never smurfed. I haven't played comp in forever, but I'm certain that I would not rise above gold even today. But yeah, that's kind of neat. It's kind of cool to kind of have that experience and for people to have that perspective of me, especially when I had, you know, such a low perspective of myself a lot of the time, especially when it came to just my play and feeling like I, you know, didn't belong with these incredible players. It's nice.
For the final game of the regular season, we weren't particularly worried about Rio. They had a lot of good players, but they also had a tendency to choke and make too many swaps. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to that game, but from what I've heard, it was pretty lively.
The only thing I can remember about the Rio Redemption game is that I played flex support on like Gibraltar. It happened somehow. And like, I think it's because we thought that team was dog shit and like, we don't need to try. Like that team that was back when Zero was still Diamond and a Genji OTP. Agreed was still Diamond. They had a Mercy one trick. Their team was like very bad, like at that time.
We just like targeted Zero because like 12. And for context, it's because he was a really good fair one trick, but he was really loud and annoying. So that's like two great reasons to only focus him in a game. Because he would be IGLing for his team. I'm pretty sure he was telling everyone what to do.
That was my favorite. We off-rolled. We went completely goofy on one of the maps because, if I remember, that was just map 3. Because in season 0, like you played all 3 games regardless of if one team had already won the series. Yeah, so we just entered game 3 and we said, all right, let's have a good time with this one. Worth in my book. But there was also a different map on Ilios. I remember specifically Ilios also, where it was on ruins, and we just slowly crept up through we won a fight and we pushed up a little bit, won a fight, and by the end of the game we were just literal spawn camping them. We were sitting right outside their spawn waiting for them to leave. We were not very respectful to Rio in that one, I will say that much. They got done dirty.
Ending the season 5-2 felt good enough, but what Plat Chat didn't expect is that we'd be moving up from our expected 3rd seed to 2nd. By some miracle, Z9 lost their final game to the underdog One Trick Wonders. Mind you, this didn't change the fact that we'd be facing Z9 in the semifinals, just that we get first map pick. Unfortunately, the postseason fell right around the Christmas holidays, so the only thing to do for about a month was watch the wildcards from the spectator stands and scrim.
Well, I don't know if any other teams really had momentum. I don't think Goyen was scrimming. I don't know if C9 was scrimming. I don't know. I didn't like how long it was. I was ready to keep going, but I don't think it changed anything. I don't think we got anything out of the break either. Like, it was kind of nice to stay a little warm, but could take or leave the break, to be honest.
Screaming continued mostly as normal during the break, usually about 2 to 3 times a week. Nothing really came of that time inside Plat Chat. In hindsight, it didn't really feel like the team greatly improved or got rusty, just a boring stagnation waiting for games to resume. However, there was one person on the team who took the time to grind their ass off, gaining about 1,000 SR over the course of about 3 weeks.
Maybe it helped us just because at the time I was improving very fast. Like I remember I started the season at 3,200. I finished around like a 4,300 peak. So maybe having that extra time to kind of develop individually did more than I think it did. But I'm not really sure. I don't remember much about the break.
Eventually, the time was upon us, and the countdown to the semifinals commenced. Of course, nothing was ever easy in Season 0, and trying to schedule matches was no exception. For playoffs, staff wanted to make sure no one would be schedule diffed, despite Z9's best efforts, so they created temporary channels in the Discord to let a few representatives from each team hash out the details. I was actually present in the text channel by this point as something of an assistant manager, so I can personally attest to how insane these conversations got. Any time frame a normal human being would be able to work with was apparently an issue for Z9. It was getting to the point where Plat Chat's players were willing to take the next available weekend regardless of Z9's starting 6, and even the neutral league staff members thought it was funny how ridiculous the ordeal had become. But finally, we were able to find a date that worked, January 19th, 2019. The final days before the match were much the same as the rest of the break. The team was confident, and it showed in the early portions of the series.
I mean, going off the first map, definitely felt strong. Baz was really good at keeping the team on a straight course. Not from what I remember, he wouldn't let people get too involved in one fight or keep popping off.
I was in full swing EQO mode, as I always call it. I was trash in game, in match chat. I was still trash talking. I don't think I'd ever fully trash talked in a game before, but that one I went all in, zero respect. I think I even flamed one of the casters at some point. I don't know how that came to be. But ultimately, yeah, at some Hanamura was when I was flaming the most, but then some switch I just remember flipped in game 3. We were holding them on B, no problem, and they just stormed in, demolished us, and capped. And we sat there stunned for a little bit, just a few seconds of what just happened. That was a lot of the beginning of the end.
Lijiang Tower was a pretty dominant stomp to start the series off. It just looked like Z9 had no synergy whatsoever. Despite the fact that their Week 7 loss to OTW was over a month prior, we all began to understand what might have happened to give Plat Chat that second seed. The match then moved over to Eichenwald, and while this was still a win for us, it certainly wasn't easy. If you've heard anything about Season 0 Plat Chat, it might have been the phrase, Matt fed Cybergraph. Cybersnip would usually swap around throughout the season, whenever he could play, between Diva, Brig, and sometimes Zarya depending on what Z9 needed. For the semifinals, he mostly stayed on Zarya, and boy did he build grabs fast. In particular, Ike was the map where he punished the hell out of Matt's Diva. If it wasn't obvious before that we stuck a main tank player on Diva, it was now. Be that as it may, a hard-fought win is still a win, and we were feeling pretty good going into Hanamura on match point. Unfortunately, this is where Z9 really kicked it into gear.
Yeah, essentially what I remember is the first 2 maps were really easy, and then I don't remember if we started trolling a little bit on map 3, but something happened where we essentially stopped being coordinated as a team, and we kind of just ended up getting completely lost that series. And by the end, I think we were kind of just all tilted because we were like, how are we losing this? We have no right to lose this. We should not be losing this. And that was making us lose it.
From my perspective, we went up 2-0, and our first thought, I think, was this is easy. There's no way we lose. And that we fell into the same blunder every team who gets reverse swept does, where we just assume the game is won, and we stop trying as hard. And then, of course, they win map 3, and we're like, oh shit, we have to try. Map 4, we don't turn it on, they win, and they have all the momentum. And the first thought, the only thing we're thinking of is how are we going to lose? Why are we are losing? It's basically, I think we just got mentally boomed after map 4, but I don't know why we lost map 3 and map 4. I know map 5 we were losing no matter what if we got there, considering we're down 2-0, or we just blew a 2-0 lead.
I think in hindsight we were a better team than Z9 though. It's just that when we played them in playoffs, there was one tremendous throw and then a downward spiral. I think that was also the first game where not having an off-tank player really started to show. I think we were overall a much more well-rounded roster, had a lot more talent. It was just cyber carried and was on the hardest carry hero in the game, which was Zarya at the time.
To their credit, Z9's base strategy on Hanamura was really well executed. Very few teams besides maybe Go Again could have pulled off the timing of their ice walls as well as Z9 did here. With their backs against the wall and the threat of being hard swept out of playoffs looming overhead, they woke up. Map 4 was Plat Chat's to choose, and we went with the map we were most comfortable on out of the entire pool, Watchpoint Gibraltar. Over the break, and even as far back as the last few weeks of the regular season, we honed an Orisa Roadhog bunker that consistently held our opponents on first point. But there's a first time for everything, and it was only a matter of time before that strat failed.
Maps 3 and 4 are more or less the same, where we still had that ego about us, they got one. one-off fight, but we're still the better team. They just kept slowly piling up wins on what they were doing. And if I remember right, we had some strategy on Gibraltar where we just all sat behind a certain set of boxes on A and we never left that point, right? Just complete bunker. And then it stomped every team we did it against before Z9. But then eventually Z9 just truly go-goatsed us and rolled that through. And that was, I think, the true tipping point of where our team started to tilt a little bit.
So I actually have a bit of extra insights for our Gibraltar woes. You see, we didn't play it correctly. As you can see in this scrim footage I dug up from the pre-playoffs break, the lineup was entirely different than what we played against Z9. Plat Chat had the right heroes, but the wrong people in the game, and on the wrong roles. Normally, we would sub Grandy out because he hated playing anything besides Reinhardt and occasionally Winston. EQO would swap over to the Orisa, and then I would come in as the Ana. This was the only strategy I was the intended starter throughout the entire season. I knew where to set up and how to use my nade to prevent the attackers from pushing in a way that they wanted. Grandy didn't. Unfortunately, it completely failed to cross my mind while we were preparing for map 4, and by the time I realized I was supposed to be subbed in, they were already setting up for the first defense. EQO knew he was supposed to play the Orisa, but the rest of the roster subconsciously knew something wasn't quite right with what they were supposed to be playing. You can even hear it in the comms as they were trying to figure out what they were going to play. In hindsight, I think it was just the nerves getting to the entire team after getting absolutely stomped on Hanamura. I don't know if me getting subbed in like normal would have changed things. A part of me says no, but that's just one of those things you can't beat yourself up over with what ifs.
Alright,
let's go, baby.
Okay, defense first?
Yeah, defense first. Want me to silence for me, or I'm gonna
Dumpster
lose.
strat, boys. Let's actually Zen on this.
Okay, guys, I got a Torbjörn. I gotta finally go Torbjörn. I'm just kidding. Who should I go?
Orisa, as soon as James gets his fat ass off it.
No, I'm horrible at Orisa. Don't ever let me use Orisa.
Orisa's an easy hero. Grand is as good of an Ana as I am, so let him play that.
That's a cap.
Grand's better. Is this actually the people who run on this? I'm forgetting.
I don't think so, but...
No, I don't let me run Orisa. That's a golden rule.
Pretty sure we have Akri.
No, I think we should keep Burundi on Orisa, even if it's not as good as
Grand doesn't trust himself.
Okay. Are we throwing?
Guys, come on, we've never done it like this. What are you guys doing?
Oh, we did it like this every single time we ran dumpster hold. I've always been the main tank.
Okay. Well...
Are you being completely serious?
No.
Going into the final map, Plat Chat managed to calm down just a little bit. Gibraltar, while difficult to stomach, was a lot closer compared to Hanamura. It still felt like we could claw our way back and salvage the series. One way or another, it was all going to finish on Ilios. Ruins was the first map, and things were surprisingly even. Whatever momentum Z9 had in maps 3 and 4 seemed to evaporate now, and Plat Chat took a reasonable lead in the control percentage of the point. Some fights were back and forth, but it felt like we were finally regaining control. And then...
Nub just presses M1 and just destroys the rest of them, giving them the match point. I mean,
but Invasion!
Oh, no! But Invasion's able to get 3! God, out of position.
Oh no, could this have been it? Big one. Get Invasion, just save it!
How much damage they can come... How much damage can come out? Nub is eventually taken out by Invasion.
It's just McMatt! No way! Invasion just clutched it out for his team! Z9 takes round 1!
Oh yeah, Ducky killed 3 out of nowhere. I was so pissed because I don't think I was a part of that. That's what made me mad. I vaguely remember seeing Ducky kill 3 and me just like screaming, "What the fuck? You got 3 fucking people, dude, with 1 bomb? That's ridiculous." Like, I mean, good on Ducky. Ducky's the GOAT. When you see that in an adrenaline overtime-ish point position, you're just like, all you see is red. Like, I was definitely mad. Someone probably like complained how it worked, or was like, "Oh, I broke LOS," or "I had blah 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 blah," and that's never true.
Oh yeah, I remember. And that comes back to memory because I remember watching that happen, and I just kind of like walked away from my computer because that's when the moment I realized we just lost, and it was sad because like, oh, we just lost to a diva bomb, like not even like a good like a shattered diva bomb, no, just a plain diva bomb, and it's like heartbreaking because you just fucking lost to a diva bomb.
I don't know how. I don't know why. Hell, some people didn't even appear to be in line of sight, but by some miracle, or tragedy depending on who you ask, Ducky found 2 kills with a remech diva bomb. What went from Plat Chat cleaning up stragglers to take the first round turned into a desperate struggle to cling on to what little hope remained. In the end, Ruins was lost, and while it was only the first round of the map, the series was already over by the time we stepped foot on Well.
I don't know, especially looking back for how much I got like shit talked afterwards. I've had someone grab, but don't really want to talk about them. I'm not into Twit longer yet. I mean, I don't know. From what I recall, I think it was just super fun. I remember us being pretty fucking sad we lost. I mean, I took it personally because I fed a ton, and then everyone's like, "Oh, you fed Grav." Yeah, I know. But I don't know. It was still super cool. It was my first tourney experience, or like first organized playoff experience, so I do like that.
Somewhat unfortunately, I don't have the team POV in the moments after the loss. I tended to cut just to the maps in both scrims and games back then, but I can attest to what you'd expect after such a loss. Getting reverse swept in the semifinals doesn't exactly feel good, and there was an awkward disappointment in the air while all the members of Plat Chat registered what just happened. Unlike a lot of our Season 0 counterparts, however, Plat Chat never blew up or immediately disbanded after finishing our season. Once the initial shock wore off, we pretty much carried on as usual in our team chat, hanging out, queuing comp together. Hell, the one thing we didn't do was watch the grand finals together. Most of us didn't care, knowing full well that Z9 would get their teeth kicked in by Go Again, and we all had a pretty good laugh when that prediction became reality. Despite all the bittersweet uncertainty about what came next, it still felt like the same Plat Chat we'd grown to love.
I mean, we were upset that we lost. I mean, the thing about Season 0 Plat Chat is Season 0 Plat Chat had some of the chillest players on it. Like, you look at the roster and you see Tanic, Baz, and Bun. All of you are really chill players. Like, you don't tend to get mad at anything, you kind of just vibe. And so even though it sucked that we lost and there was definitely some frustration, it was kind of just like a, hey, we still got third. We did something. Like, it's okay that we lost.
I mean, even though the season kind of ended, it didn't end in the way we wanted, but like a lot of people just ended up sticking together because like the No Eva core and like a lot of those cores, like the old like Season 0 like group, for a long time, like a lot of people on Plat Chat like stayed together and like, you know, talked with each other. Because I know Matt, Bun, Baz, they all stayed together. They talked for a while. They ended up like forming multiple teams together, or at least attempted to.
Oh yeah, at the time I was really pissed about it, but I wasn't like mad at teammates. I was more, you know, if anything, it kind of was part of what made me like want to get better at the game, because we were kind of so close. I joined this off like a whim. Right after I'd gotten a PC, I'd switched over from console. I just kind of got picked up. I didn't even know if I was gonna get picked, because I was just some random diamond player, and it just ended up working out. Ended up being a lot of fun. Yeah, I think like kind of the first 3 League 0 seasons for me were kind of what launched my competitive. I don't want to say career, because I don't take it very seriously. I still play to this day, but I've kind of just do it for fun. But it's been a fun hobby as long as I've done it. That kind of comes from League 0, and Plat Chat was kind of the start of that. So it was the first team where I played and I genuinely was friends with everybody on the team. Before that, it was all just console teams where I didn't interact with people, because, you know, we didn't have any social platforms on console. You just showed up to scrims and then got off. So it was a new experience for me, and it was really good. Kind of helped me get really good at the game and have a lot of fun with it.
So yeah, I definitely felt some camaraderie there, and it was, again, you know, this is 2018. I'm in college. I am not super active on campus with a whole lot of things, so this is a lot of my social interaction is coming from stuff like this. So to just be able to participate was super cool, and you know, all the guys were at their core good guys.
The members of the original Plat Chat would eventually go their separate ways, but the legacy of what we were lives on, even to this day. It was only in the years after Season 0 that we learned just how lucky we were to be a part of such a stable and friendly team. Third place is nothing to scoff at, and many of us still keep in touch to this very day. But I'm sure you're all still wondering what I meant at the very beginning of this video. Well, you see, Season 0 Plat Chat's legacy does not simply end at being an extremely stable team during a volatile season. For many of us, it was merely the beginning to our journeys. From this final roster, in the years since, we have 6 League 0 champions, 2 players hitting Contenders trials, and 1 who made it all the way to Contenders. Even inside the league itself, we've had 5 captains, 4 managers, 3 league staff, and 1 commissioner. During my time on the staff team, this was my golden standard, the kind of experience I wanted to provide for every single player taking part in this community. For better or worse, I'm not exaggerating when I say this is probably the single most consequential team in League 0 history. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, I need a Farah!
No, you're gonna die.
Okay, just damage boost Tracer, it's okay.
I agreed
Yeah,
on.
let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, go,
I
go, go.
agreed on a Pharah.
Oh, you did it.
Nice back!
Oh my god.
Keep
That's
going.
one
Keep
down,
going.
boys. Where's his lane? Where's his lane?
No! Ooh, big res, big res! Thank you.
That was. I
Kill
thought
us up.
Nub died, so I tried to res him, not you.
C9, C9.
That brute was so... The fucking ragdoll! Oh, that's
Man, I used my res on the most
I
important.
know, just go to push. Shut the fuck up!
No! Kill Ryan, it's just Ryan, it's just Ryan. Kill him, boys. He's running hard, fuck. We got point, Pog.
Oh.
I will send my ult, keep it going.
Don't die, don't die.
Alright, try hard right now. We win this point. Nice, nice, nice.
Nice,
oh
so
my
we
God.
hold it, they're down there on it.
Battle Mercy!
Oh, what's the heals?
Tannic! Holy shit! Tannic is so fun!
No, guys, go to the spawn, go to the spawn, go to the spawn.
We go to the spawn, we go to the spawn!
Get him.
They can't walk out.
Tannic, no!
No! Res me.
Heal Tannic! Heal Tannic!
Poggers!
Don't heal
Oh,
him.
we're killing him,
Heal
boys!
Tannic, no!
Oh no, they're too smart. Nice, Tanny.
Oh, I have respect her.
No! Help Tannic!
Oh my god.
Get run.